The bold and the beautiful. Bill faces the unthinkable as Will spirals into addiction after Luna's pregnancy bombshell. The walls are closing in fast on Bill Spencer as he's forced to confront a reality he never imagined. His son Will, once full of promise and ambition, has fallen deep into the grips of drug use following the emotional shock of Luna's pregnancy revelation. What started as a private crisis has now exploded into a devastating storm of consequences. Secrets are turning into scandals, and Bill is fighting to keep his son from being swallowed whole by the darkness that has taken over his life. The unraveling began the moment Luna's pregnancy test came back positive. For Will, the timing, the secrecy, the sheer weight of what it all meant hit harder than anyone could have prepared for. The revelation shook him to his core. The identity of the father was like a ticking bomb no one saw coming. Will wasn't ready. He wasn't stable, and while he had been trying to hold himself together, the truth broke something in him. The guilt, the confusion, the pressure to step up or run it all became too much. Bill initially believed his son was simply overwhelmed. He noticed the mood swings, the outbursts, the erratic behavior. But as a father, he chalked it up to emotional stress, the same way anyone might respond to such a life-altering event. He knew the situation with Luna had left Will disoriented. He knew the fallout had been messy. Elektra's discovery of the truth, Luna's arrest, the public whispers, the family shame, but Bill had no idea his son had turned to drugs to cope. The discovery didn't come with a dramatic overdose or an intervention scene. It came in fragments. Missed meetings, slurred words, money gone without explanation, a sudden disappearance. And finally, a moment Bill couldn't unsee. Will, alone in a back room of Spencer Publications, hands trembling, trying to light a pipe. The scene left Bill frozen. It wasn't just a father watching his son crumble. It was a man seeing everything he'd built begin to collapse. Bill confronted Will immediately, but what he got wasn't guilt or even remorse. It was deflection, anger, shame laced with denial. Will tried to explain it away. Said he just needed something to take the edge off, that it wasn't permanent, that he had it under control. But Bill had seen this play out before, in others, in his own past, and he knew better. The problem wasn't that Will had used once. The problem was that Will had continued silently, dangerously, and with increasing dependence. And now the signs were undeniable. The addiction was real, and it was getting worse. Bill, a man used to power and control, found himself at a total loss. No business deal could fix this. No money could erase the damage. The son he loved was slipping, and every second they waited, the deeper the hole got. The turning point came when Katie showed up, unaware of the extent of Will's descent. She had come to talk to try to repair some of the fractures caused by Luna's pregnancy and the media fallout. What she found was a wreck of a young man she barely recognized. Eyes vacant, skin pale, a shell of the son she once cradled. The confrontation that followed was heartbreaking. Will lashed out, blamed them both, said they had never let him make his own choices, never believed in him unless he played the perfect son. Bill and Katie realized then that they were running out of time. The denial, the enabling, the hope that this would just pass, it was over. The only option left was professional help. But Will refused. Said he didn't need rehab. Said he wasn't like those people. He wasn't an addict. He was just overwhelmed. He could stop any time, but he couldn't. That much was clear. Luna, meanwhile, devastated by the consequences of the pregnancy and her arrest, tried to reach out. She felt responsible, even though she had never intended for things to spiral like this. She wanted to speak with Will to make peace, to help him heal. But Bill refused to let her near him. Not now. Not while he was spiraling. The last thing Will needed was more emotional chaos. Still, Luna persisted. She spoke to Katie, told her how broken Will had seemed the last time they talked. That he had cried. That he had said he didn't know how to be a father, that he didn't know how to be anything anymore. Katie, heart torn in every direction, broke down in front of Bill that night. She begged him to act, to save their son before it was too late, before the next overdose, before a car crash, before they found him unconscious and alone somewhere beyond saving. The next morning, Bill made the hardest call of his life. He contacted a private rehab facility, one known for its discretion and success with high-profile patients. He didn't want media attention. He didn't want gossip. He just wanted to save his boy. But convincing Will was another matter. The intervention was quiet. Just Bill, Katie, and Wyatt, who had flown in after hearing about his brother's condition. They didn't yell. They didn't threaten. They just laid it all out, what they'd seen, what they feared, what they were willing to do to help. At first, Will walked out, said they were suffocating him, that they had no idea what he was going through, that he didn't need saving, he needed space. But by nightfall, he was back. This time, silent, defeated, numb. "I don't want to feel like this anymore," he said, voice cracking. "I don't even know who I am." That was enough. The next day, Will was admitted to the facility. No cameras, no press. Just a father walking his son through the gates of healing, praying that the worst was behind them. But the story is far from over. Inside the walls of the rehab center, Will must now face every emotion he tried to bury with substances. The guilt, the shame, the fear of being a father, the unresolved trauma of Luna's arrest, the fear of failing again. And Bill must face the hardest part of all, letting go, trusting others to help his son when all he wants is to fix it himself, watching from a distance, hoping that the boy he raised can find the strength to rise again. Back in Los Angeles, the fallout continues. Spencer Publications is unstable. The press is circling. Elektra is still bitter, still furious at how everything unfolded. Luna is dealing with her own trauma, uncertain whether she be charged, whether she be allowed to raise her child in peace. And the Forresters are watching, wondering whether this is just another Spencer scandal or the implosion of a family from the inside out. The question remains, will emerge stronger, sober, ready to face the life that awaits him? Or will addiction claim another victim in a town where secrets fester and weakness is preyed upon? For now, Bill waits, silent, angry, hopeful, helpless. And the Bold and the Beautiful marches on, weaving another layer of heartbreak, redemption, and raw humanity into its ever-unfolding legacy. The Bold and the Beautiful, Bill Spencer's silent war, a father's gamble, a son on the run, and a scandal ready to explode in a city built on secrets. Silence can be deadly. And on this explosive arc of the Bold and the Beautiful, Bill Spencer finds himself caught in a high-stakes spiral that threatens to destroy not just his legacy, but his family. What started as a father protecting his troubled son has evolved into a ticking time bomb of crime, blackmail, and public exposure, and the clock is running out. The situation with Will Spencer had already gone off the rails. Reeling from the revelation of Luna's pregnancy, cornered by guilt, shame, and a broken heart, will turn to drugs as his escape. What started as a way to cope quickly evolved into dependency. As the addiction deepened, so did the recklessness. And Bill, desperately trying to hold his son's world together, found himself chasing shadows until the GPS ping led him somewhere no parent ever wants to go. A shipping dock. Late night, fog rolling in, trucks idling, silence and danger hanging in the air. Bill followed the signal without backup, without warning anyone. He needed to know what Will was doing. What he found was confirmation of his worst fears. His son in the middle of a handoff, exchanging money for drugs with a dealer operating far beyond petty street crime. Will was skittish, nervous, obviously high. The dealer, calm and cold, clocked Bill immediately. It wasn't a rescue, it was a standoff. Bill didn't call the cops. He didn't yell. He did what only a man like Bill Spencer could do. He bought the entire shipment on the spot. Cash. No questions. He told the dealer it was over. that his son was out, that this was the last time. But nothing is ever that easy, especially not in the bold and the beautiful. The dealer wasn't just another low-level hustler. He was connected to a bigger operation, one with old grudges and long memories, specifically to a figure from Bill's past. Someone Bill had buried in business and reputation years ago. Someone who didn't forget. Someone who saw the golden opportunity of a lifetime, revenge wrapped in scandal, backed by evidence. Because the entire dockside exchange had been recorded. A full video, Will buying drugs, Bill stepping in, cash exchanging hands, faces, voices, product. The dealer sent it with a message, pay up or this goes wide. Bill was cornered. If the video leaked, Will's life would be over. Arrest, headlines, public disgrace, endless judgment. Spencer Publications would nosedive. Katie would never forgive him for keeping it quiet. Brooke, Steffi, the Forresters, everyone would see the truth. That Bill Spencer, the empire builder, had become the architect of his family's collapse. Still, Bill hesitated. He considered paying. For a moment, he even considered going public on his own terms, controlling the narrative, buying time, spinning the truth. But the timing was brutal. The company was already unstable. Media eyes were everywhere. And Will wasn't ready to face that storm. He wasn't even clean. Then came the leak. The dealer, impatient and hungry for chaos, released the video through underground networks. It hit private blogs, fringe sites, then social media. Within hours, it was everywhere. Bill Spencer and son in drug deal gone wrong. The headlines screamed. Spencer scandal explodes. The footage was grainy, but undeniable. The comments were brutal. The investors were panicking. And Will vanished. Panic-stricken and humiliated, Will disappeared the moment the story broke. No calls. No messages, no sign, not at Katie's, not at the beach house, not with Wyatt or Liam. Bill launched a private search, terrified that his son already spiraling might take the worst possible exit. Every hour he was gone, the tension climbed. Every unanswered call was another dagger. And in the chaos, Bill had to make the hardest decision of his life. Option 1, confess. Come forward, admit everything, that he was there, that he paid off the dealer, that he tried to cover it up, risk prison, risk the company, risk dragging the rest of his family into the scandal, but maybe save Will's future in the process. Option 2, deny, stonewall, pretend the video was fake or manipulated, use the full weight of his PR team, legal muscle, and media connections to crush the story. Make it disappear. Try to find Will quietly and handle things behind closed doors. But there was one final, fragile option. One last gamble. Bill made the call? Quietly, urgently. He reached out to the same discreet rehab facility he had scouted weeks earlier. A place far from Los Angeles. No headlines. No cameras. A place where Will could recover if they could find him in time. The plan was simple. Bring Will in under full privacy, begin immediate treatment, and show the world that action had been taken before the scandal spread too far. But the plan hinged on finding Will fast. It was Brooke who finally got the call. Will had turned up at one of Ridge's old cabins, disoriented and sick. Brooke called Bill, and within an hour, the chopper was in the air. Bill didn't wait. He flew out, picked up his son, and carried him into recovery with no cameras, no press, just sheer desperation and a glimmer of hope. Inside the rehab facility, Will was barely responsive. His detox would be brutal, the emotional recovery even harder. But Bill was there, every day, sitting through the pain, the silence, the rage, the regret. And as the scandal swirled outside, a new fight began inside one to save what was left of Will's spirit. Meanwhile, Spencer Publications scrambled. Lawyers worked around the clock. Press statements were drafted, retracted, revised. Katie, blindsided and furious, tried to shield the story from affecting their other children. Wyatt issued a public statement carefully worded, measured, vague. Liam kept his distance, trying to protect Hope and the kids from the fallout. But the damage was done. The scandal had cracked the company's foundation, and the vultures were circling. And yet, Bill didn't blink. He had made his choice. His career, his empire, it could burn if it meant pulling Will out of the fire. He gave the green light to his legal team to issue a conditional statement. Bill would cooperate fully with authorities if necessary, but at the moment, his priority was his son's recovery. It was a calculated move, enough transparency to ease the heat, but not enough to invite criminal prosecution. Now, the eyes of Los Angeles are on the Spencers, waiting, watching, wondering if the next bombshell will fall. Will the dealer resurface? Will another video emerge? Will Bill's rivals like Ridge or even Eric exploit the scandal for leverage? Will the press dig deeper and expose other cracks in the Spencer dynasty? But most importantly, Will survive? Will he come back from this stronger, sober, redeemed? Or is this just the beginning of a longer, darker spiral? For now, one thing is certain: Bill Spencer made his choice. He protected his son at all costs. But in a city like this, every choice has a price. And someone always pays. The bold and the beautiful, Bill's breaking point, a father's pride, a son's pain, and a dangerous gamble with love in the latest and most emotionally combustible chapter of The Bold and the Beautiful. The Spencer legacy finds itself on the brink of collapse, not because of hostile takeovers or scandalous affairs, but from within. At the center of the crisis, Will Spencer, the golden son now deep in the clutches of drug addiction, and his father Bill, refusing to let go of control, even if it means watching his son unravel. Following the explosion of Will's addiction and the leaked video from the docs that nearly shattered Spencer Publications, Bill acted swiftly. He moved Will into a private, high-end detox facility far from Los Angeles, using his wealth and connections to buy silence and comfort. But what money couldn't buy was Will's cooperation or emotional recovery. Days into detox, Will was physically stable, but emotionally unreachable. Withdrawn, combative, angry. The counselors on staff reported resistance to therapy, no engagement in group sessions, and increasing signs of emotional volatility. Katie Logan and Brooke Logan, heartbroken but grounded, demanded a medical intervention. They pushed for psychiatric evaluation and long-term inpatient care, knowing that addiction this deep couldn't be handled with ego and cash. Katie, already scarred by raising Will in Bill's long shadow, wasn't about to let her son become another casualty of Bill's pride. Brooke stood with her firm, maternal, realistic. But Bill wasn't ready to listen. He was adamant. "He's my son. I'll fix him." It wasn't about stubbornness alone. It was about guilt. About the fear that admitting Will needed more than he could give meant admitting that somewhere along the way he had failed as a father. Instead of agreeing to institutionalization, Bill took another route, one more dangerous than he realized. He pulled strings and hired a world-renowned addiction specialist for private treatment. This wasn't just any expert. This was Dr. Victor Langston, a discreet but controversial name in celebrity addiction circles. Known for his results, feared for his methods, and shrouded in rumors. What Bill didn't realize or chose to ignore was that Langston had once treated none other than Sheila Carter, and whatever he had done in that process clearly hadn't worked. Sheila's continued chaos and destruction was a testament to that failure. When Brooke found out about Langston's past with Sheila, alarms went off immediately. Katie was furious. "You're bringing in someone who couldn't even help the most dangerous woman in LA." But Bill stood his ground. "This is different. Will is different. This man gets results." Reluctantly, the family watched as Langston took over Will's recovery, moving into the private estate where Will was being held under medical observation. The first sessions were slow, combative. Will refused to engage. He mocked the therapy, shut down conversations, and accused everyone of treating him like a patient instead of a person. But then the walls began to crack. In one particularly explosive session, Langston broke through. He pushed past the drug talk, past the Luna pregnancy, past the scandal. He asked Will directly, "What are you so afraid of?" And the truth came pouring out. Will wasn't just broken over Luna. He wasn't just high from stress. He was drowning in the pressure to become the perfect copy of his father. From childhood, he had been groomed to think like Bill, act like Bill, lead like Bill. And for a while, he did. But the weight of that expectation had eaten him alive. He wasn't allowed to fail. He wasn't allowed to feel. Every mistake, every crack, every moment of weakness became shame. He didn't take drugs to escape Luna. He took them to escape being Bill Spencer's son. This breakthrough shocked everyone. Katie wept. Brooke was stunned. Even Langston paused, his cold demeanor briefly replaced with something close to sympathy. But Bill? He didn't speak. He stared, stoic, like the ground beneath him had finally split. The next recommendation from Langston was immediate and direct. 90-day inpatient treatment. Not private sessions. Not 5-star luxury detox. A secure, locked-down addiction rehabilitation program where Will would be under 24/7 psychiatric and medical supervision with limited contact to family and no access to the outside world. Will exploded? "You're locking me away like I'm a criminal," he screamed. "I'm not some charity case you can fix with your money." He refused to go voluntarily, and that left Bill with the impossible decision. California law permitted involuntary commitment under extreme conditions with psychiatric evaluation. Langston confirmed that Will met the criteria: impaired judgment, drug dependency, emotional instability, and potential self-harm. The choice was Bill's. Sign the involuntary commitment papers or walk away, risking relapse, overdose, or worse. Katie urged him. Brooke stood firm, but Bill hesitated. This was his son. Signing that paper meant stripping Will of autonomy. It meant declaring, legally, that Will could not be trusted to make decisions about his own life. Bill had fought his entire life to control everything. Now he had to let go or tighten his grip and risk suffocating the one person he loved most. In the end, he signed. Will was transported to the inpatient facility at dawn, sedated, silent, broken. Bill stood at the gates, watching the transport vehicle disappear down the road. His heart was heavier than it had ever been. He hadn't cried when he lost company shares. He hadn't cried during custody battles. But that morning, he cried for his son. Inside the facility, Will's war has only just begun. He's angry, humiliated, and hurt. He feels betrayed. He refuses contact with his father, refuses visits, refuses to participate. But Langston is there again leading therapy, now working in a structured environment where his methods can be more tightly controlled. Still, the ghosts of his past with Sheila linger. Can a man who once failed with the most manipulative patient in LA really save Will? And what happens if he can't? Back in Los Angeles, the fallout continues. Spencer Publications is barely recovering. Investors are cautious. Rivals like Ridge and Eric are circling, waiting for blood in the water. Media continues to whisper about the scandal, about where Will is, about whether more secrets are still buried. Katie is torn between grief and fury. Brooke watches silently, seeing the cycle repeat: children raised in the shadows of powerful men, crushed by the same weight their fathers carried. And Bill. Bill is silent now. He visits the facility weekly. He waits outside. He brings books. He never goes in. He made the call. He did what he had to do. But he knows this wasn't just about addiction. It was about identity, about legacy, about love twisted into expectation. And until Will forgives him, or at least begins to understand, Bill knows the real healing hasn't even begun. As the bold and the beautiful charges forward, the Spencer dynasty faces its most intimate, painful trial yet. No corporate coup, no affair, just a father, a son, and the brutal cost of trying to be everything until you become nothing. The question remains, Will come back stronger? Or will this silence between father and son become permanent? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear, this isn't just a storyline. This is a